joto boss.
Ngoja nimalize kwanza.
Udzungwa is one of the most scenic and fascinating place of East Africa. It is the largest rainforest mountains covered with tall trees and clouds, and middle of it flows 170-meter tall Sanye waterfalls. It has highest number of endemic and near-endemic species and is one of the most important global biodiversity hotspots in the world, however faces threat of extinction. It is found in the heart of Tanzania. We will take you through the journey to witness the mysteries of the Udzungwa Mountains. Our journey begins from the east coast of Tanzania, Dar es Salaam, and goes straight 194 kilometers to center of Tanzania to Morogoro, and along the way our crew members joins. It goes further 156 kilometers to southwest to Mikumi, and then further 65 kilometers to southwest to Udzungwa. And along the way the beautiful scenery is seen. However, the place is wild and the occurrence of animals is common. Tanzania is vast, and with abundant natural resources, it is young, and offers abundant opportunities to investors in various sectors. It has population of about 55 million as of 2016. And its GDP grows from 6 to 7% per year. And its poverty level rate has declined. The Mu-Ibrahim Index has shown improvement in overall governance indicators between 2015 and 2018, especially in the components of safety, and rule of law, participation in human rights, as well as human development. Tanzania is surrounded by Great Lakes and ocean on the east. On north is Lake Victoria, which is the largest lake in Africa and main source of water for River Nile. On the west it is Lake Tanganyika, which is the longest freshwater lake in the world. And on the south it is Lake Nyasa. It has the most beautiful colorful fishes. Tanzania has 7 UNESCO listed heritage sites. The Kondo Rock Art Sites, listed in 2006. The ruins of Kilwa Kisiwani and ruins of Songo Nara, listed in 1981. And the stone town of Zanzibar, listed in 2000. These are listed under the cultural category, and it has other 3 sites listed under the natural heritage, which are the Kilimanjaro National Park, listed in 1987. The Silas Game Reserve, listed in 1982. And the Serengeti National Park, listed in 1981. And one is listed as both natural and cultural heritage site, that is the Ngorongoro Conservation Area, listed in 1979 and 2010. However, Udzungwa Mountains National Park are not yet listed under UNESCO heritage sites. Tanzania has many attractions, rich in history and culture, traditions, moral values. Its people are humble, kind, and helpful. Even the founding father of nation presented this with his core ideology of Ujamaa na Kujitegemea. This is also reflected in their national anthem. The first sentence commences with prayer for Africa, showing the brotherhood is not only for itself but rather neighbors are first. And Tanzania is not independent without other nations being independent. The anthem it is then followed by similar prayer for Tanzania, and cornerstone values depicted in the anthem are Umoja and Amani, wisdom, unity, and peace, and these are values shared by all Tanzanian. Nevertheless, the southern people are also very peaceful, humble, kind and helpful, but what cannot be forgotten by the southern people is the influence of Ohehe tribal wars and the colonial history. Ohehe lies in the Udzungwa Mountains between the Great Ruaha and Kilombero rivers at that time, and Hehe are referred to as tribe of that area, and they are Bantu-speaking people. During pre-colonial time, Udzungwa Mountains and the plateau of central Uhehe were inhabited by small 15 independent groups. They were relatively peaceful and lived in isolation, as the trade and exploration routes were through north and west of Ruataha River and south were not visited. Until the Germans came to Tanzania in 1880 through trade agreements in which most chiefs were surrendering to them, and they were producing sisal, cotton, and plantation rubber, and they were also selling copra, sesame, and peanuts, and they ended in 1919. In 1886, after Anglo-German agreement which limited the authority of the Sultan of Zanzibar along the coast only, the German were asserting their authority on the coast and inland with no concern for the feeling of the local population nor for those of Sultan of Zanzibar. And in 1888, Arab-led rebellion through their leader Abushiri against Germans, which was joined by Africans along the coast and inland. And they were unsuccessful, and finally Abushiri was caught and hanged, the news of which spread far, in which German commander Zelewski earned himself Swahili nickname Nyungu, which means the hammer. On the other hand, there was political movement in the southern tribes led by Chief Nkwanwa, the son of Chief Nyungu-ya-mawe, who was extending authority over the groups of Ubana and Uhehe. The Bena were ruled by Mkinamanga dynasty and Hehe were ruled by Muyinga dynasty. Both were descendants of Ikambagulub. After death of Nyungu-ya-mawe, the authority was tactically taken by Mwambambe, the Nyamwezi ruler, who married to one of the daughters of Nyungu-ya-mawe. He was ruling both Uhehe and northern Ubana as ruled by Nyungu-ya-mawe. At that time Nkwanwa fled to Ogogo. Mwambambe was also known as Mamle, or Mwaneki Mamule, and was also referred to as Li Mwambambe. The prefix had villain interpretation. There were bloody tribal wars, however Mwambambe agreed to have blood brotherhood, and Nkwanwa was persuaded to return to Uhehe by supporters who didn't agree with Mwambambe. It was Malabanu Mwambalanka and some other agnates who persuaded Nkwanwa to return. On his return, Nkwanwa's supporters fought those of Mwambambe, and after a battle in which one of most important supporters of Mwambambe, Ndumbikabana, was killed, Mwambambe had to flee to Kiwali so seek help from Nyungu-ya-mawe, the successful warlord who was ruling Oakimbo. At Kiwali, Mwambambe was recruiting forces. On the other hand, Nkwanwa was consolidating his forces by building his first fort in Kalinga. In the movement, Nkwanwa faced Ngoni and was victorious. And in 1881, at the end of tribal war with Ngoni, the two tribes made a truce, that they become joking partners, and agreed not to fight until their son had grown up. This strengthened Nkwanwa's position. And soon afterward Mwambambe returned with many followers and battled Nkwanwa's supporters. It was the fierce battle, and battlefield acquired name Ilundamatwe, meaning the place where many heads were piled up, and in the battle most of Mwambambe forces were killed. And 1883 February, when the French traveler Victor Giroux stayed at Kalinga, Nkwanwa was apparently the unchallenged ruler of all Uhehe. Nkwanwa was pronounced differently by the Germans' expedition leaders and the tribe's people. A research titled Nkwanwa and the Hehe Wars done by Alison Redmayne in 1968 shows that Nkwanwa was the abbreviation of Nkwanwa, which was pronounced as Nkwanwa, and other pronunciation were as follows:
Nkwawa, Uawa, Kwawa, Nkwaba, Nkwanika, Mukwawinika, Kwawinjika, Mkuwanika.
However, Mkwawa is the accepted pronunciation of the name, as it also used by his descendants.
It was the time after Anglo-German Agreement 1886. The German were expanding inland, and Nkwanwa and the Hehe were expanding toward the coast, and they were threatening trade traffic along the caravan route from Kigoma to Bagamoyo, in which Germans were exporting sisal, cotton and plantation rubber. and on August 7, 1891 Mkwawa confronted the Germans at Lugalo and destroyed the Germans. Lugalo is the place where the battle was held. It is just outside Iringa on the Mikamai Road. Iringa comes from the pronunciations of Lilinga, which means the fort of war. And on October 30, 1894 Germans counter-attacked and taken Kalinga fort, but Mkwawa managed to escape. And later in July 19, 1898 Mkwawa committed suicide rather than surrender to Germany. And the sad part was that despite of his death, his head was cut off and sent to Germany until it was forgotten, but not forgotten by the people of Hehe until 1954 the British governor of Tanganyika Sir Edward Twining made diplomatic effort to return the skull. The ruins and other old weapons are now placed at Kalinga Historical Museum, which is about 13 kilometers out of Iringa and just off the road to the west of Ruaha National Park. Well, it took a war to earn respect between Germans and the Hehe people. These events influenced the people of Udzungwa. They were a small group living in isolation and not visited by foreigners, as trade routes were from north and not south. Udzungwa Mountains was referred to as Udzungwa as referred by Alison Redmayne 1968 in Mkwawa and the Hehe Wars, but Martin T. Walsh and David C. Moyer 2002 in Hehe Botanical Reference gives an explanation of dialect in reference to name Nyasungwe, which means elephant plant. He cited that the Malango Atoll in Prep gives name Nyasungwe as a dialect Zungwe, and also Udzungwa was referred as Udzungwa. Therefore Udzungwa comes from the Wasungwe people who lives in the slopes of the mountain and pronounce Udzungwa as Udzungwa.
Did you know Udzungwa Mountains is on the bedrock of one of the oldest rocks of the world? It rests on the bedrocks of Eastern Arc Mountains. Eastern Arc Mountains are believed to be the ancient mountains. They are over 30 million years old. They are older than Mount Kilimanjaro, which is believed to be from 1 to 2 million years old. Eastern Arc is believed to be formed the explosions of the split of the supercontinent, the Banja. Banja is the supercontinent that comprised of all the land masses on Earth. It existed during the late Paleozoic and early Mesozoic eras. The Banja split happened around 180 million logarithmic years. The split process started in southern continent known as Gondwana, which is land mass comprises of what is today known as South America, Africa, India, Madagascar, Australia, New Zealand and Antarctica. And on the other hand, another split known Laurasia was happening, which comprised land mass which is today known as North America, Europe, and Asia excluding Indian subcontinent. There were also subsequent other splits. When a landmass breaks up due to continental drift, the geographical ranges of thousands of species are also simultaneously divided. The two hypotheses are being debated on explaining the current existence of species and their variation. Like Darwin attempting to explain variation of species through natural selection, it's more about physical variation that does not explain the underlying molecular variation. Nevertheless, the variation through dispersal, spreading or movement over the barrier, like ocean, still explaining many other observation of variation of species separated through bridge etc. However, on the other hand, the variation is also explained through isolation hypothesis that the species have varied independently. Suppose if each side of continent have developed independent variation of species, then each side of the continent would have species whose genetic root would emerge from the original species whose genetic root would correspond to the time of continental breakup. Sarah R. N. McIntyre 1, 2017 study have found a correlation between the time of breakup and time of original species to correlate and suggest that the species have resulted in isolation rather than dispersal through ocean barriers. They have put several reasonings suggesting the independent speciation has played a significant role in explaining global distribution of species in the continental drift. Some of their reason include the following. 1. Distance. The species would need to endure a sea voyage including exposure to salt water and fluctuating temperatures. If the species is salt or temperature sensitive, it might not survive long enough to travel and populate new continent. Example, freshwater fish and selective frogs. 2. Food requirements. For a species to survive crossing a continental divide, it would need to be flexible enough with its diet to find satisfactory food sources on the sea voyage and upon arrival in the new ecosystem. Species which rely on other species for the daily requirement, like if symbiosis or commensal, would have difficulty in adapting without their partner. 3. Reproduction limitations. Some animals reproduce rapidly and produce many offspring. With only one pregnant female, these animals could rapidly colonize a new continent. Others do not reach sexual maturity for many years after birth and then produce few offspring and would be less likely to colonize a new continent. Example, primates and mammals. 4. Mating limitations. Some animals bred at time it's optimum for the survival of offspring. Conditions like temperature, food and water availability, these would have difficulty for survival. Similarly, if you take an example of the genus of elephant shrew Rincosian and investigate whether the changes in the species are due to traveling across the barriers or in isolation. Rincosian are known to have 4 species. The Rincosian chrysopagus, the golden-rumped elephant shrew. The Rincosian sini, the checkered elephant shrew. The Rincosian Petersi, the black and rufous elephant shrew. And the recently discovered Rincosian Udzungwensis, the grey-faced sinji, which was discovered in Udzungwa Mountains, is one of the IUCN red-listed species. Genetic studies of grey-faced sinji have found that the speciation is more of introgression rather than hybridization, which means related species have not made to produce grey-faced sinji, rather they have historical existence in isolation. And findings suggest they have existed for the past 25 million years without changes along with eastern Arc Mountains. These eastern Arc Mountains are a chain of ancient crystalline Precambrian basement mountains covering from Tite Hills in southern Kenya to Udzungwa Mountain in south-central Tanzania, which they are uplifted at least 30 million years ago, and they are under the direct climatic influence of the Indian Ocean. Lovett, 1990. Lovett et al., 2004, and they are also believed to be connected to the forests of the Congo Basin of West Africa.
From the northern side there is North Pier and South Pier Mountain in Mwanga and same district of Kilimanjaro region. It is followed by West Uzambara and East Uzambara lying along the district of Tanga region from Lushoto, Korogwe, Muhija, and Kinga districts. Then emerges again in Kailandi in Tanga as Engu Mountains. This continues to Nguru Mountains in Bamuro in Morogoro, which emerges in the eastern side as Oligar Mountains in Bamuro in Morogoro. On the eastern side another crest emerges as Yukaguru Mountains, which is Kilasa Morogoro. On the southern side is connected to Rubiho Mountains from Kilasa to Mpawiva. The Rubiho Mountains found in Mpwapwe and Kilasa district. And on the eastern side it emerges as Malungwi Mountains in Morogoro. On the southern side is the largest mountain covering from Kilambura in Morogoro stretching to Kilolo and Mufindi in Iringa. And on the east of the south lies Mahenge Mountains in Olonga district in Morogoro. Eastern Arc Mountains are known for its high concentration of endemic species of animals and plants. Its biological importance cannot be overstressed. It has been mentioned in several sources to cite the few. White, 1983, as Center for Endemism. Olsen and Dinerstein 1998, as Global 200 Ecoregion of WWF. Mittermeier et al., 1998, 2004, International Host Spot of Biodiversity. ICVP 1992, Stattersfield et al., 1998, as International Endemic Bird Area of Bird Life. Brooks et al., 2002, Ricketts et al., 2005, as one of the world's region facing potential threat of species extinctions. The Udzungwa Mountain are unique in comparison to other Eastern Arc mountains. In terms of greater size of forest area, greater altitudinal range of forest cover, broad variation of habitat types that mainly occur within national park, and support mammals from both dry and moist habitats. The Udzungwa Mountain National Park covers a size of 1990 square kilometers. Is largest moist forest blocks of the Eastern Arc Mountains, a chain of ancient massifs partially covered in rainforest, Lovett and Wasser 1993. It has outstanding importance for biodiversity conservation, Myers et al. 2000, Burgess et al. 2007. It has highest number of endemic and near-endemic species and recognized as crucial site for conservation in East Africa, Burgess et al. 2007. However, the area is vulnerable to human exploitation because of relatively small size of forest, severe fragmentation, Brooks et al. 2002, and lack of effective conservation management. Various other sources are cited in Martin R. Nielsen, 2004, for the threat of extinction of habitation, some of which include the following: human settlement activities, hunting of wildlife for food, bushmeat hunting, commercial hunting, source of cash income, source of protein, maintaining standard of living, illegal bushmeat trade. Other threats of potential concern also include the following: poaching, illegal logging, source of cooking energy, farming, awareness, climate change, and insufficient resources to manage. In the Udzungwa Mountains, there are 5 Udzungwa endemic mammals and 13 of the 17 mammals are endemic to Eastern Arc Mountains, Southern Highlands, and Mount Kilimanjaro, as cited by Burgess et al. 2007. Udzungwa Mountains also hold 2 endemic and threatened monkey, as cited by Rovero et al. 2006. And 1 near endemic, as cited by Jones et al. 2005, Davenport et al. 2006. Udzungwa Mountains are regarded as one of the most important sites in Africa for primate conservation, as cited by Kingdon and Howell 1993, also reflect the biodiversity importance of the Udzungwa Mountains. The Udzungwa Mountains also exhibit outstanding carnivore diversity, with at least 26 species recorded, as cited by DeLuca and Mbunga 2005 AB. Including Jackson's mongoose Diagale jacksoni, newly recorded for Tanzania, as cited by DeLuca and Rovero 2006, Lowe's Cervaline Genita Cervalina loei, DeLuca and Mbunga 2002. Have you imagined a country without electricity or fresh water? Mountains have been described as the water towers of the world. Most sources of rivers' waters are from mountain. More than half of humanity relies on water from these rivers for domestic irrigation, industrial activity, and hydroelectric power. The mountain waters are also necessary for the health of ecosystem. They dilute pollutants in the lowland areas and also provide nutrients for aquatic life. Mountains are also a major source of fresh air. It reduces carbon footprint in the world. Mountains maintains climate, provide favorable environment for fruits, vegetation, and plants and animals. It's tourist attraction, refreshing place, and an independent ecosystem. Have you seen an angry plant? It can bite insects, or release poison like a snake, or it feels to care and hug other plant. Well, plants are like animals, they can perceive light, scent, touch, wind, gravity, some can respond to sound. Some plants are carnivore and they can trap insects. Other have self-defense mechanism, they can release alkaloids in their shoots which taste bitter by animals and hence deter their consumption by animals. Some plants are wild and they release tannins poison. Have you heard of deaths of cows and kudus without reasoning? It was noted that it is because of these angry poisoning plants. The poisoning plants were also used in the wars. Well, the forest is dense. Some plants are observed along the routes, some are not, and some can also be discovered as new plants.
Hifadhi hii ina kilomita za mraba 1990 na imegawanyika katika pande mbili, upande wa Iringa na upande wa Morogoro. Upande wa Iringa imechukua 80% ambako ni nyasi za majani mafupi, na ukienda kule utaona wanyama wakubwa watano isipokuwa vifaru. Na upande huu wa Morogoro imeshika nafasi 20% ambapo ni misitu ya mvua. Na katika upande huu utaona jamii za vipepeo, jamii za nyani, jamii za ndege, miti na kadhalika. Pia tunao vivutio vingi ambavyo ni maporomoko ya maji, jamii za ndege, jamii za vipepeo, jamii za nyani. Pia
ni kazi vyako vile ulivyosema wakati wa kurudi tutavipanda tena.